All right, let's go over pass optimal and GPP winning lineups for the PGA Championship. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome on in. I like to go over this segment because it gives us a good starting point on where to build our lineups from. You're gonna notice throughout this video, I'm focused on salaries, not so much the golfers. And that has a lot to do with analyzing this every single week for every single tournament that I've been podcasting YouTube. And I have found certain occurrences, regular occurrences that happen from week to week, event to event. Now, yes, things are unique with each event, and therefore we use the knowledge that we have to filter out those things. So this PGA Championship is a major championship, and a lot of times DraftKings will create a soft pricing for this event because they want casual people like maybe you to come in and put a lineup together that just looks awesome because you can fit it into the salary cap. Well, if you want to win a GPP, why not focus on which lineups have won in the past and build lineups either similarly or take some pieces from that lineup and apply them to yours? That is what this segment's all about. And believe it or not, we have data sets from DraftKings salaries that go all the way back to 2015 when they started doing it for the Masters. And most events go back to 2017. So on SweetSpotDFS.com that you see on the screen right now, you can find all this data under the historic salary builds page, which you can access most of this by going under fantasy tools and finding the pages that I'm talking about. So this is called past salary builds, and it's really just looking over what salary structure has worked at any event or all events. You can clear out all the selections and you can see I have over 1,000 records of lineups, which go over the GPP winning lineup, the optimal lineup, and the SweetSpot optimal, which if you need to know what the SweetSpot optimal is a lineup that uses at least $49,600 of the salary and above and up, and that takes down the GPP. I want you to build the most perfect, realistic lineup. Now, this channel is all about targeting the optimal lineup, trying to hit the optimal lineup, but sometimes the optimal lineup leaves thousands of dollars on the table, and I never recommend that. I used to until I realized you actually open Pandora's box a bit more when you try to go down that route. Leaving a lot of money on the table actually it doesn't create, it opens up the opportunity to create more lineups because more combinations of lineups actually get introduced the more money you leave on the table. And I'd much rather make it simpler for you and limit the amount of lineups you can actually create by not leaving a ton of money on the table. Plus, you'll be more successful. Most GPP winning lineups don't leave a lot of money on the table, and most SweetSpot optimals take down GPP winning lineups. So my 2 cents here, don't leave a lot of money on the table. Just never do that. It'll never turn out good for you. You'll have more success spending as much of the salary as you can. And again, you can go to SweetSpotDFS.com and take a look. Research all you want. There are filters you can use. I will be adding more filters throughout the week, but obviously you can use the salary used, max salary, min salary, which I will be doing in this video. I'll be showcasing most of these tools for you. But yes, to go back to what I was saying in the intro, we have a lot of data sets that we can analyze, which means we can normalize this data and find regular occurrences that happen. And if those regular occurrences happen, why not go with it? So I know some people criticize this type of analysis, but the fact of the matter is all salaries for all contests are power rankings. And really, what we can say to ourselves, the first question we can try to answer is, does the best ranked golfer in the field, is he in the optimal lineup often? Is he in the GPP winning lineup often? Is he in the SweetSpot optimal? You can do that type of research. And if you can already eliminate that, you are on a better track and it will be easier to build lineups. So I find it very foolish for people not to analyze salaries, not to analyze salary build, because this gets you, it just gets you on a very fast and easy track to building a successful lineup. That's my sales pitch to you. I think it's very important. And I do this every single week. I do it every single week. So this isn't just a major championship occurrence or anything like that. And a lot of the members here at SweetSpotDFS can attest that it works. So enough of that. There is one very important distinction to make for this week's event, the 2025 PGA Championship. We have a 5K range. And it's very important for you guys to understand, I treat 5K ranges as if they're 6K ranges. Because if you do truly want a normalized data set, the data points have to nearly be identical. So for me to do that, I adjust those salaries. And you can find those adjustments by going to the cheat sheet at SweetSpotDFS.com. This is free. You do not need an account. So go to SweetSpotDFS.com. There's a link down in the description. Hover under Fantasy Tools and you'll find cheat sheet at the very top. Drill down on that cheat sheet and you'll come to this page. This still has the Truist Championship loaded in, but it shortly will have the PGA. Scroll down until you see this cheat sheet right here. Click here. Just click that button. This brings you to the Google sheet that I provide for everyone to use. This is a public sheet that you can come and check out. I have a few tabs at the bottom of the spreadsheet. The most important one I want you to focus in on, especially for this video, is the price conversion tab that's at the bottom of the sheet. I'm going to zoom in for you guys, but this is what it looks like. So I took the PGA Championship information. That's the three columns that I've just highlighted. Column B, column C, and column D. Column D has this week's DraftKings salaries in there. You can see Scottie Scheffler is $13,400. Obviously, DraftKings deems him the best player in the field. That's why he's priced at $13,400. I've adjusted his salary down to $12,400. Now, I've adjusted all of these salaries, and it's based off of what the average salaries are for all seasons, and it's around $7,100. So what that means is when you look at every golfer's salary for any other event that doesn't have a 5K range, any full field event, 156 golfers plus, or not plus, but 156 golfers, you will see that their the average salary that you get from all of them is about $7,100. That actually kind of applies to fields that have 144 golfers, 121 golfers, 132 golfers, sometimes even the limited field events that have 70 or 80 golfers. You will get an average salary of about $7,100. And it breaks down pretty simply. You normally have about 5 10K golfers. You normally have about 7 9K golfers. You have about 10 8K golfers, and so on. Oh, not so much so on and so forth, but a lot of these ranges stay the same throughout a lot of these tournaments. Well, another thing that I did for this week, and what I do every single week, there is a 5K range, is I'll actually go into this page that I've created that actually keeps track of how many golfers were in each salary for every year. So I have that right in this box, as you can see. When we look at the 10K range, this little column over here, this little bucket right here, shows you the averages. So for 10K golfers, for the PGA Championship, we average about 5.25 golfers in the 10K range. Last year, there were 5 10K golfers. This is an adjustment because there was a 5K range last year as well, and there were more than 5 golfers in the 10K and above range. But after my adjustments were made, it gets adjusted to normalize from previous years. There's nothing really you guys have to understand from this. Because if you just follow along with my videos and you follow along with me, I will be live Tuesday night, by the way, building lineups for everybody. When we put all of this into the optimizer, you won't even have to think twice about how to build your lineups. You won't have to think twice about which salaries to use or whatever, because I will already have it programmed into the optimizer to treat some of these 10K golfers that I don't deem as 10K golfers to 9K golfers, and then so on and so forth with the rest of the salaries that have been adjusted. But going back to what you see on the page, 10K golfers, we normally see about 5. Again, 9K golfers, we normally see 7. Again, you can see that right here. We normally see about 7 9K golfers. Now, last year we had 9, a bit more. I actually made it 7 this week. There were 11 8K golfers last year, but on average, we see 10. And then there's, I think these are the more important ranges to get correct, the 7K range. And then I have a higher 6K range and a lower 6K range. You can see 38, 50, and 43 respectively. If I go back to the price conversion, we have 5 10K golfers. Again, that matches the average. We have 7 9K golfers. We have 10 8K golfers. And a big thing to note here, you can see in this 9K range, there are 2 10K golfers in DraftKings this week that I deem as a 9K golfer. And then the same is down here for the 8K range. You can see there are 5 9K golfers in what I call the 8K range. And then there are, 6 8K golfers in the 7K range. But the important number is to get around that 40. Again, if I go back to here, you're going to see we average about 38.13 7K golfers in a PGA Championship field. Well, again, if I go back to the price conversion and we take a look, if I highlight all of these, we get 41 golfers. There are 41 golfers I deem in the 7K range. I can easily remove 3 of these guys because they are $6,400 in DraftKings. And it is just a perfect 3 golfers that I can just remove. I don't think I'm going to, but I thought about it. I actually would rather have Rico Hoey, JJ Spawn, and JT Poston in the 7K range as opposed to the 6K range. And again, just to remind you, these are me adjusting the salaries. So despite them saying $6,400 for their DraftKings price tag, I'm marking them up to $7,000. So that's a big distinction also to make. You can see for the most part, the DraftKings salaries are more expensive than my adjusted salaries until you get down to about the $7,300, $7,200 mark. And then it flip-flops. The DraftKings salaries become cheaper while my adjusted salaries are more expensive. And that's to tip the scales. You know, DraftKings currently has the highest price golfer here, $13,400, and the lowest price golfer here, which is $5,000. I'm doing this to the salaries. I am shrinking that. I don't like how stretched out, how soft they made the pricing. I want this to mimic other years or just every other event that DraftKings has without a 5K range. I think it's really stupid that they put a 5K range. I mentioned this in the DraftKings first look. I think it's really dumb. So again, I've adjusted these salaries. And that's what you're going to get when it comes down to the bucket system when I cover that video. And then also when it comes down to building lineups. I'm going to treat these 5K golfers as 6K golfers. So going back to the tools that I was showing you, we go to past salary builds. And if I were to go to say how about this? I'll put more filters on and we'll put the min salary down to $5,900 for the max. So this column or this field is called minimum salary. I want this website, this tool to look for all tournaments where the minimum salary in either the GPP winning lineup, the optimal lineup, or the SweetSpot optimal was under $5,900 or really under $6,000. So I'll just hit enter and that will sort these salaries out. And you can see right here. So, well, first and foremost, you can see the minimum salaries here all have a 5K golfer attached to it. If I were to go to, let's see. Oh, I was hoping there was a PGA Championship. There's not. Let's do something like this. The Players Championship in 2024. It shows that it has 3 6K golfers, but I bet that's not true. I can go to a different page on SweetSpotDFS.com. This one is called Pass Optimals. You go to this page and we put in the 2024 Players Championship. Just go ahead and type in the tournament name, then it'll filter out. And which one did we look at? It was the GPP winning lineup. Okay, so when you drill down on this, yeah, sure enough, there are actually 2 5K golfers there. So that's an important distinction. I'm thinking Doug Gim should actually be a 7K golfer. I'll have to dig into this and make sure that that's correct. But if I were to go back to this past salary builds, you're going to see it goes 10, 10, 7, and then 3 6s. So yeah, I would have to go look back at this and just see if that is correct. But when you look at something, yeah, let me double check this. Was that wrong? I for sure know that Brian Harman is in the 7K range, because if you take what you see this week with the 7K range, a $7,900 golfer is most likely going to be about a $7,900 golfer when the adjustments are made. So I know that Brian Harman was a 7Ks. I'll have to look into that. Maybe it's not 3 6Ks and it's actually 2. Either way, the most important thing that I'm trying to mention to you guys is that there are, I mark up the 5K golfers into 6K golfers. So when you use this tool, the important thing to note is some of these lineups will have a 5K golfer in them, but will be looked at as a 6K golfer on the salary build segment of the tool. So again, the first thing we can do is type in PGA Championship under the tournament and just see what the most common salary builds are. I must have another filter on. Let's clear the filters and go ahead and type in PGA Championship again. Oh yeah, I had the minimum salaries that were in there. Okay. And then you're going to see how many records that I have recorded, and you will see the most common salary builds. So there are 5 that are tied with 2 records each. 10-8, 3 7s and a 6, 10-8-8, 2 7s and a 6, 10-9-8, 7 7 6. This is usually, if you've seen my show before, I usually advocate starting your lineups with a 10K golfer and above, a 9K, an 8K, 2 7s, and a 6. Well, if you go to the cheat sheet and you go to the price conversion, I'm basically saying grab one golfer here, which could be like, let's just pretend it's Xander Schauffele at 10-7. And then I say, okay, grab one 9K golfer. That would be in this segment here, which could also include another 10K golfer in DraftKings. So we go Xander and Colin Morikawa, and that would be a 10-9 start. And then you could actually grab, say, Tyrrell Hatton right here, who I have adjusted as an $8,500 golfer, but basically that would be a 10-7, 10-4, and a 9K golfer to start your lineups in DraftKings with. But technically, on my adjusted salaries, that's a 10-9-8 start. So just throwing that out there, it could be confusing, but if you use this price conversion, you can start one 10K golfer, one 9K golfer, and one 8K golfer without really truly looking at the DraftKings salaries and just sticking to these segments, these tiers, as I call them. So let's continue with this. Let's go like that and then have Tyrrell Hatton. I just want to add these up. And then we want to grab 2 7K golfers. Well, how about we do like Corey Connors at 83? And you know what? Let's see if we can do an $8,200 golfer. We cannot. That'd be too expensive. Scroll down till we hit another 7K golfer. And this is the crazy thing about the 7K range. The adjusted 7K range starts at $8,400 in this week's DraftKings contest. And it actually goes down to $6,400. So how about this? Let's just put JT Poston in there. JT Poston at $6,400. And now I have $5,200 remaining, which is probably not a good place to be because there aren't very good golfers down here that are $5,200. But we could put Rafael Campos in our lineup, and that technically fulfills the 10-9-8, 7-7-6 method. But quite frankly, what I think I would rather do is just get rid of Corey Connors and then add someone like Mav McNeely at $7,800, and that'll give us a bit more price, more salary forgiveness. And now I can play someone $5,700 and above, or not above, anywhere 57 and below. So let's just put in EVR. So this equals $50,000. And it's a 10-7, a 10-4, a $9,000 golfer, 78, 64, and 57. But when you adjust them, that would be a 10-9-8, 7-7-6 starting point. I know that can be confusing. I get it. Use the price conversion tool on the cheat sheet. Again, you can access the cheat sheet by going to SweetSpotDFS.com and just going under fantasy tools, the little drop down there, go down to the cheat sheet. Very simple. You do not have to be a paying member to get this. Then once you're there, you just scroll down. So this is how it'll load for you. You will see this first, but use the scroll bar all the way on the right for your browser and come down to this cheat sheet section, click here, and it'll bring you to the cheat sheet. Anyways, going back to what I was talking about. So we got to 10-9-8, 7-7-6. And that was right here, 10-9-8, 7-7-6. There was 2 records. So 9% of the salary builds that I have recorded start with that build, or are that build, I should say. Another one that has 2 records, 10-9-9, 7-6-6. And then the last one that has 2 records is a 9-9-9, 7-7-6. So really the most common thing that I see in each of these lineups is there is a 7K golfer. Actually, yeah, there's a 7K golfer and a 6K golfer, one apiece. But to say it, to note another thing that I see the most is each one of these also starts with a 10K golfer, except for this last one. And when you actually put all of them together and you look at every single lineup that's built, those that start with a 10K golfer, you can count on your hand. You could certainly do that. Or you can use this golfer 1 filter and just go 10K. All the lineups that start with a 10K. And you can count. There are 16. Well, how about this? Let's look at all of them that start with a 9. There are 6. So 16 versus 6. What would you rather take? I'm a guy that likes to use numbers in order when building my lineups. I like my odds better starting with the 16 records versus the 6. Of course, I will also say I do everything to percentages. So when I build out my lineups, I build 100 plus lineups. And out of those 100 lineups, let's make it a round number, 100 lineups. It will fraction it out. Where if we take 6 and 16, 6 is nearly 1/3 of 16. So 30% of my lineups might start with a 9K golfer because that's just what we see on the screen. 30% of lineups do start with a 9K golfer. But there is also another distinction to make. How many of these are leaving a ton of money on the table? So one way to do that is go into the more filters, and salary used, we can actually use the slider bar to go, I want to see all those that use, like how many lineups use 49, go 49.4 and below. And if I hit less filters, there are 7. So when I look at these 7 lineups, you know, how many of them have a 10K start or how many of them have a 9K start? And I kind of want to just remove those. Another way to do that, though, is actually make this minimum 49.5 and this to be 50,000. And just do something like that. I have to put in the filter again. Didn't like what I did. Let's do something like this. See how many records there are. There are 15. Now we can see the most common lineup builds for this. Doesn't really change much. Either goes 10-8-8, 10-9-8, or 10-9-9. And then some iteration of a 7 and a 6, 7-7-6, or 7-6-6. Actually, a more important distinction to make, if you go the 10-9-9 route, again, you can drill down on anything here. It counts as a filter. It will filter out everything. That's what's beautiful about this site. So if I take a look, I can see what lineups those, what year and what lineups those consisted of. The stats that are consisted of this. So basically what I can do is filter down and just see, okay, of these 10-9-9s, one, what was the year? It was last year. It was the year that Xander Schauffele won. And then I can actually use this page over here and take a look at the 2024 PGA Championship. And I can either include the SweetSpot Optimal or the GPP winning lineup, but the GPP winning lineup is loaded already. And this one went Xander at 10-9. Remember, Scottie Scheffler was the most expensive golfer, and a way to see that is just deselect whatever lineup you chose and just sort from salaries top to bottom. And you can see all the golfers in their salaries. So Scottie Scheffler was the most expensive golfer at $13,200. If you remember correctly, he also went to jail. That whole debacle that happened. So we probably could excuse his performance. He might have been in the GPP winning lineup or the optimal lineup if he had won, but he didn't, obviously. Xander Schauffele did. And he was the fourth most expensive golfer at $10,900. Again, if you take a look at last year's salaries, there were 8 total 10K golfers, but I only count 5 of them to be true 10K golfers. Xander Schauffele was definitely one of them. Brooks would have been the cutoff point. So it would have been Brooks, Xander, Jon Rahm, McIlroy, and Scheffler that were true 10K golfers. And then under Brooks, Ludwig, Colin Morikawa, and Patrick Cantlay would have been 9K golfers. Because again, there was a 5K range. I'm sorting this from lowest to highest now. And you can see there's a 5K range from last year. Using the tool, the Pass Optimal tool at SweetSpotDFS.com. So it's very important to make these distinctions just to see what it looks like, what lineups really looked like using both of the tools. So yeah, 2024, this 10,99766. Again, they both happened in 2024. They both started with Xander Schauffele, and then the minimum price guy was $6,200. I forgot who that was even. Thomas Dietrich. So it didn't really dig down into the 5K range at all. You had $6,400 Tom Hoge, a notable name. $6,200 Thomas Dietrich at that time wouldn't have been as notable. And he had not yet won on tour yet, but he was one of those DP World Tour guys that came over to play on the PGA Tour and did pretty well. He's a good golfer. Let's put it that way. So again, use the tools at SweetSpotDFS.com. Pass Optimal and Past Salary Builds and Pass Optimals. Those two pages will help you dig down and try to find the correct salary builds to go with this week. Now, you don't have to just look at the PGA Championship. There are other filters you can actually apply. Like, I can go ahead and just open up the salaries, salary use to everything. But for your max salary, this is taking into account for the lineups, either a GPP winning lineup, an optimal lineup, or a SweetSpot optimal. If you wanted to see what Scottie Scheffler lineups look like at his price tag, what you would do is put in the minimum salary, the minimum max salary, because again, this field is called max salary. But the two filters, this would be the minimum and this would be the maximum. So we want to see what the most expensive max salary golfer is in any of these lineups that I'm about to show you, because I want to see what a Scottie Scheffler lineup would look like. Because if we're going to build, quality lineups, let's take a look at what those lineups look like. So go ahead and put $13,000 in this leftmost filter, hit enter, and then we go last filters. There are 15. Oh, you know what? I forgot to clear out. I had drilled down on one of the filters. Let's try this again. Actually, I'm just going to use the slider bar because we can also do that. Go there. Let's go one little. This is going to be 13,000 and above. There are 15 total records. So if you were going to start a lineup with a golfer that's $13,000, obviously this week it's Scottie Scheffler, you can see what the most common salary builds are, starting with a $13,000 golfer. And then you can also see what the minimum salary was for each of those lineups, which I find to be very important. So if you do start with a $13,000 golfer, do you truly have to go down into the $5,000 range? That's a big question. And you can see what some of these lineups would look like. So the most common build, if you were to go with like a Scottie start at 13,400, would be a 10-10-8-6-6-6. If I drill down on that, we can see how many 5K golfers. There were several 5K golfers. So what you'd want to do is just drill down into each of these. Now, the Tour Championship is one. I don't really like using Tour Championship information. There is a starting position that goes along with that. that really enhances the odds, and that also enhances the salaries. It is a funky tournament to use. So what you could do is drill down into this, select all, and then type in Tour Championship or just Tour and deselect Tour Championship. Now I'll get rid of it. So we don't have to look at that. And instead, now we look at the only 2 events that have that 10, 10, 8, 6, 6, 6. And actually, that actually drops down. That drops that salary build from being the most common to the second most common. Either way, if you still wanted to look at this, it's the Charles Schwab Challenge of 2024. It's a GPP winning lineup and the optimal lineup. Different lineups. So again, you would go to this page and let's deselect PGA Championship and type in Charles Schwab. And the GPP winning lineup's already highlighted, so you can see what this lineup looks like. $13,300 Scottie Scheffler with an $11,000 Morikawa. Then you had a $5,800 Davis Riley and a $5,600 Kevin Streelman with the $6,100 Kevin Tway. So very cheap. So you could build a lineup like this week. You know, there's Scottie at 13,300, Collin Morikawa at 11,000. So if I go back to the cheat sheet and I look at 13,400, you might be able to put a lineup together with Scottie Scheffler and maybe Bryson DeChambeau or possibly Ludwig Åberg if you follow a lineup that looks similar to this. 81, 61, 58, 56, which this week I think you can. If we take a look at as to how we could do that, is there an 8,000? I actually really like Sung JM. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go Scottie, Bryson, Sung J at $8,200. Sorry, it's bouncing all over the place. Sung J at 82. That leaves me with $26,900 left. Not 26, I'm sorry. $16,900 left to build lineups with. So not a lot of money. But we could still do 3 5Ks. So I'm going to get the cheapest 5K golfer I'm comfortable playing this week. And I think it really could be Justin Lauer. It could be him. That might be too low priced for my liking. Let's actually use Ryo Hisetsune. Let's go Ryo, and then let's put, like, say, Mackenzie Hughes in that lineup. And now I have $5,800 left that I can put another golfer in. And we can maybe make that Sam Stevens. I won't lie. I actually wouldn't recommend building a lineup like this where you would have 3 6K golfers in your lineup. But that does work out, you know, if you were to build a lineup like this. Because again, it's happened for the GPP winning lineup. Not to say you can translate the Charles Schwab Challenge over to the PGA Championship. That's not what I mean by talking about the comparisons between the two. This is mostly just looking at salary builds and just trying to make it work out. Because I bet you anything, if you feel like, well, if I start a lineup with Scottie Scheffler, I can't use $11,500 Bryson DeChambeau. I probably have to drop down, you know, probably down to the 8K range. And maybe it's one of the cheaper 8K golfers. I don't know which one I like the most. I actually don't like anybody in the 8K range that much. But let's just go with Tommy Fleetwood. This actually gives me $2,400 to work with. So I'd actually rather pick up from Sam Stevens, and I actually have $8,200 now that I can work with. So I could play the truest champion, Sepp Straka, to go with Sung JM, and that actually looks like a pretty solid lineup. Technically, it would go 10, 8, 7, 7, 6, 6. And that would be fine as well. But what I'm trying to get at is when you look at historic salary builds, what you can often find is you don't have to do that balance build with a Scottie Scheffler like I just showed you on the screen. You can honestly go 10, 10, 8 and then fill it up with the 6K golfers, because again, that's what you see. And just to reiterate this, I call the 5K range the 6K range because I adjust those salaries. So technically, the lineup I just built you was a 10, 10, 8, 5, 5, 5. That's what that ended up being. But again, when I adjust the salaries, it is I think it's a 10-10-8 still. No, it's a 10-10-7, 6-6-6. Or did I actually do the AK range? I can't remember. No, I did not. I went down to Sung Jae, which technically is a 7K golfer with the adjusted salaries. Okay. Either way, lineups that you can actually build that work out the way that past salary builds worked out. And again, you can actually go to SweetSpotDFS.com, and actually probably am going to bookend this video with saying this. Go to SweetSpotDFS.com to do your own research. Drill into all the filters that you can use. Try to figure out, which golfer do you like the most? And then from there, what type of salaries do you want to build? Personally, in my opinion, I think the best way to go about this, if you want to use this tool the most efficiently, is I would actually go into more filters and I would drop this minimum salary down to $5,900 because we do have a 5K range. If you intend on playing a 5K golfer, this is what I would do. If you do not, I'd actually do it the opposite way. Do like, let's just go 7,000 and then bump this up to 6,000. So now you're looking at a minimum salary, whatever lineup that you want to look for will have the minimum salaried golfer in that lineup be somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000. And then depending on what your max golfer is, so let's say you don't like Scottie this week, but instead you like Rory. So find the 12,200, use that filter. Put up in this max salary, go 12,000 to say, we can be very narrow with this. Go 12,400. Maybe actually open up to 11,800 to 12,004. And I think that's probably going to be your best bet. And then you can see what the most common salary builds would be. So if you wanted to build a lineup with Rory McIlroy and not dive down into the 5K range, this is what a lineup would look like. It'd be a 10-8, 3 7s, and a 6. And again, I adjust my salaries for any time there's a 5K range. So this salary build actually works out when there are 5K golfers in a lineup that are obviously considered 6K golfers. But again, if you go to the adjustments, and I know this is going to be very confusing, the 7K range goes all the way down to $6,400. So you can actually have 63, 62, 61, and 6,000. The golfers right here are still in the 6K range. That goes along with some of these 5K golfers. So again, I understand that is somewhat confusing, but you don't have to be confused. You don't have to. You can still use these tools and not worry about a 5K range or anything like that. Clear out all the filters and just look at whatever you want to. So remember, there's a more filters tab. I again would say, whatever your most expensive golfer you're comfortable playing, throw that in here, put your range there. So if it's 10,000 to, Rory's price tag, which was, we'll just make it 12,400. I know he's 12,200. Let's make it 12,400 just to, fit that mold. And then whatever salary you're comfortable leaving on the table, I personally don't recommend leaving a lot of salary on the table. I think you should use up at least 49,500. I say 49,600 most of the time. 49.5 is fine. And then when you put all of those filters in, you can see the most common lineup builds right here. 10-9-8, 7-7-6, as always, tried and true. So really, it's up to you guys. What are you more comfortable doing? Use the filters to your advantage. You can get really narrow with your research, which will help you build lineups. Being narrow with your research actually doesn't make your lineup building a narrow procedure. It's just following very specific rules. And within those specific rules, you have X amount of golfers you can build lineups around. So again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Visit me Tuesday night where I will go live. You can leave any questions in there, any that you want. I encourage you guys to participate there. I also encourage you guys to participate on X. I think those are very smart. I shouldn't say that. If you do have questions, I would love to hear them, because then I can bring them up during these videos and give a more thoughtful explanation versus just a text explanation. But if you want to be anonymous, just DM me or email me right there, SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com, and I will answer your questions. For this, just to conclude, for the PGA Championship, again, we have a $13,000 golfer in the field. That is Scottie Scheffler. There's no one way to go about looking at the most common salary builds until you narrow down your criteria, what you want to look for. You could go ahead and just put in, if I clear everything, and just put in the major championships, which you're going to have to type out. So Masters, PGA Champ. All right. I think if you just put in Open, you'll find the Open Championship. And then the last one is the US Open, U.S.open. There you go. So if you wanted to look at just all major championship, what is the most common salary bill? It's a 1098,776. And again, if you want to put more filters in there, I should also have more filters in here that indicate, was there a 5K range? If there was, let's filter out by those tournaments. I'll have to work on that. I don't think I'm going to have that for the PGA Championship, but for the most part, if you just want to look at major championships, you can use this. And again, I have these filters, 49,500 to 50,000. Again, the most common salary build is 1098,776. There's 30% of your lineups are 1098,776. Then it's followed by 1098,766. So just throwing that out there, everything comes full circle. I normally always advise you to start your lineups with a 1098,776 approach, and then just making substitutions from there. But you can use these tools however you want. For me, what I just noticed with me concluding, 1098,776 is where to start. I will, throughout the week, get a better sense as to what direction I want to build my lineups. And what I mean by that is, do I want to play Scottie Scheffler at 13,400? And if I do, what type of lineups do I want to build with Scottie Scheffler? And then that'll also apply with Rory McIlroy. And from there, I think it just becomes 1098,776 no matter what. So if it isn't Scottie, if it isn't Rory, it's 1098,776. And I feel absolutely comfortable building my lineups that way. So yeah, I should have ended this video maybe 10, 20 minutes or 10, 15 minutes earlier, but I'm glad I went through what I just ended up doing. Some reminders before I get out of here, because I have to do that. We'll transition. You'll see all this stuff, whatever. PGA Championship giveaway. It's a win the pot. Starts at $20, and for every one new subscriber, I will add $2. I have bookmarked the starting point all the way over there to the left, 831 subscribers. So as you see right now, whatever subscriber count there is, that's how many we've gained. And for how many we've gained, we add $2 per subscriber to that count, and that just adds to the pot. During the Masters tournament, that pot got up to $50. So someone won $50 just from all the new subscribers. And if you want an entry into this giveaway, subscribe first and foremost, and then comment on any of my videos that I post this week. There will be several. So comment on any of those videos and then share. For each video you share, you get one entry that way, and it can be on any platform. There are some platforms I don't have access to, so you're going to have to let me know what platforms you're sharing those on. It's not so much I don't have access, I just don't have accounts on them. So let me know. And then also, for each video you comment on, you get an additional entry that way. So I don't know how many videos I'm going to post. I think it's going to be maybe 5. You can get 5 entries just by commenting in the comment section. And then each 5 of those I will post on X, but you can use the browser above, or I think there's a share button. If you click one of the buttons, it'll say, there'll be a share option that will copy the link to this video. And wherever you send it, whether it's Instagram, Rumble, TikTok, or whatever, I honestly don't use TikTok. I don't use Rumble. I rarely use Instagram. But if you do share on any of those platforms, let me know. I'll be able to go look it up, and I will give you credit. You'll get an entry to this giveaway. Obviously, the more entries you have, the better chances you have to win. So it's all up to you. It is just my way to reward you for rewarding me. And then that also kind of goes into a SweetSpotDFS.com giveaway. Once I reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away $1,000. And if you want an entry into this giveaway, you need to create an account at SweetSpotDFS.com. It can be free. You do not have to pay. And paying doesn't give you better chances to win. But if you want to pay, I'm not going to hold that against you. But you don't have to. Create an account, as simple as that, and then that will get you an entry because it gives me your email address, and basically I will draw winners, and you'll get to pick from the giveaways. It'll be a first come, first serve, so whoever wins the first giveaway draw will be able to choose whatever giveaway they would like, and then so on and so forth. So if you want a chance to win, create an account at SweetSpotDFS.com. That's all you got to do. But if you're not subscribed, well, what are you doing? You're just delaying the giveaway, because once we reach 1,000 subscribers, that's when I'm doing the giveaway. So subscribe, create an account, and throughout this week, just comment on any of my videos, share them wherever, whenever, and you'll get entries for each one of those. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.